of Superpowers. This panel discussion is titled Superpowers at My Fingertips. Over to Shabnam. Let's start off this session.
Hello, it's absolutely lovely to be here with all of you. It's really quite overwhelming and amazing to be here with 31 children who have already written books, short stories, poetry. And I would like to sort of start with a little anecdote from my life. When I was 10 years old, I had a class called Moral Science. I don't know if any of you all have this class anymore. You do. Basically, do good things, feel good thoughts, all of that. And sort of be very happy that you won't get homework in that class, hopefully. So we had this moral science class and we had a really dreary workbook where we had to write things like how I will do good things for the world and how I will be a good daughter and a good niece and a good cousin and a good mother-in-law and daughter-in-law and all of that. Now one day we turned the page to the next page and it was like myself in the future. And one of the questions there was what I will be when I grow up. So everybody around me, I was in a girls' school, there were 48 other girls in my class and everybody was giggling and writing odd things like, Barbie doll and ballerina and actress and whatever, astronaut and just having a gala time. But for some reason, the question really sort of lodged in my brain and I thought, what do I want to be when I grow up? What do I want to be when I grow up? And the word popped into my head, writer. And honestly, what I really wanted to do with my life was write books. But I have to confess, I was quite a cowardly custard. And instead of jumping into actually writing books, it took me, I think, after that time, another 30 years before I actually sat down and wrote a book. In the middle, I did other stuff like being a journalist, which was a writer of sorts. But to actually write a book took me a long time and a lot of courage. So that is why I'm really thrilled to be sharing the stage with 3 people who, once the idea came to them and once the inspiration and the motivation came to them, decided to sit down and actually follow their hearts and their dreams. I would like to introduce you to the 3 young writers, all boys on my panel. There is Arya, who's written a really wonderful book called The Dragon Scroll. Very interesting, full of interesting historical facts, unusual cities, and a lot of tidbits and I one day want to sit him down and find out how much is fact and how much is fiction. It's quite intriguing to read. Then there is Dhruv, who's written an action-packed book called The Caspian That Flies. And it starts with a journalist, so I felt very happy. And then the journalist one day wakes up and realizes he's king of the Caspians, and the Caspian is a sort of a supernatural creature. And I wished that my journalism days had been equally eventful after I read his book. And there is Karnav, who has written not one, but an entire series of books. And I think is one of the youngest Indian published writers that there is. He's written 6 books, I think 7 now, wow. Karthik and Mixi. Karthik is a young boy, Mixi is a robot, and together they solve the kind of problems that superheroes of today really need to address. Rather than bashing the Joker, I think it's time we bashed ocean pollution and global warming. So, given the range of talent, I think there's a lot we have to talk about. The session that we have today is called Superpowers at our fingertips. And I thought that what we would start with is not just look at superpowers in the conventional sense, but look at superpowers as writing as a superpower and see how that too can do the things that, the Supermen and Batman and Spider-Man of our times have achieved. So let me start with a question. How did you decide to be a writer? How did that moment, that click come? And how did you go about actually moving with it? So let me start with Karnav and then we'll all talk. And if there's anything that one of you says that triggers a thought in your head, please do interrupt them,
So as we were speaking of superpowers again and again, so let's talk about my superhero or the inspiration, my father. My father is my superhero because he's the one who motivated me to write the series of books which I have been writing from the early age of 8. read. I wrote these books to express myself. That is a superpower, indeed, to express myself and pass on the message of goodness to other people. My father started this because he used to read me stories from the early age of 6, which was Panchtantra, the Indian stories which we all know. And I felt that if they can write, why can't I write? So I started writing as a journey, and the first book which I wrote was Kartik and Mixi, A Journey of Creations, which luckily was a compilation of 12 to 13 short stories.
Okay.
And after that, I moved on to a novel, then to the third book, that is Kartik, Mixi and Europa, and finally the fourth book, Kartik, Mixi and Climate Change.
But you're young, so writing just came easily to you? You just sat and wrote, or was it tricky? Was it difficult? And was it... We all talk about writer's block and, ideas and things like that. Did that never hinder you in any way?
No, actually the first book which I wrote, like the first rough which I wrote, was exactly a copy of the Panchtantra. But then I thought that why not write something of my own. So I started writing my own stories which were related to the current scenario at that time. So I used to take nature as my own of what I want to write to express myself. So I took nature, I wrote 12 to 13 short stories and started my journey.
Fantastic. And Dhruv, will you tell us a little about how you started, whether there was a single moment of realization in your life, or how this began?
So as Karnav said, it almost began the same way for me, because when I was very young, I liked to read books, and they were a major source of inspiration upon me. So I started reading books, and whenever you read books and you are into them, a sort of thought clicks into your mind that what would happen if you were the writer of that book. That was what inspired me, and I wrote that idea of mine into a book, which was my first book, The Journey to My Dreams, of teen short stories.
And what is that book about?
It is a compilation of 15 short stories. So, lot of.
And again, I want to ask you, did you just sit and write, or how did that happen? How did that process of why writing? Why not, making videos? Why not making songs? Why this particular field?
Particularly because every time I was just wondering about that topic, it just hovered into my mind randomly out of nowhere. Only your passion comes that way. So that is why I saw appeal in writing, and that is why I preferred writing over any other thing.
Okay, wonderful. And Arya, will you tell us about your journey?
So there's a really interesting anecdote that happened. So I'm always in a different world, in some mystery era. Everything's happening differently for me. I'm always thinking of what if endings for the books I read, and etc. etc. So there was this day, I was sitting on the top of my gate. I climbed up there, and everybody was playing outside, and I was just sitting there, lost in my own world. So my mom came up to me and asked what was happening. Arya, are you okay? You have to go outside and play. So I was like, I'm making a story, ma. Let me sit here for a little longer. So she was like, you're cooking up excuses. Come on, if you really have a story, reciprocate it, tell it out. And then she was like, it's not true, it's an excuse. And she brought out a notebook. And she was like, I've already finished 3 pages. How much more do you want me to write? And then she introduced me to typing, and I started penning down my own book.
And so, was this the book that came out of that, or was it?
That right.
Okay. And so that you just started the process of writing. Did you do a lot of research? Because I see a lot of research in your book. Have you traveled to the places you've written about?
Actually, I've traveled there in my mind because I researched about it till hours upon hours. And actually, though the book in itself is fictional, the historical backdrops mentioned there, along with the places there, are actually literal and do really exist.
Fantastic. That's really wonderful. So, as I mentioned, I thought that we could sort of look at writing in a sense as a superpower. I mean, we know the superpowers that our great Marvel heroes and our more old-fashioned superheroes have. But would you agree that being able to write can also achieve a fair amount of change, a fair number of miracles in a sense, in the way people think, in the way people behave? Do you agree that writing is a superpower? And what do you think you could do with this power of yours?
As Martin Luther has said, that knowledge is the greatest power. So if you write books, you can express yourself, as I said. So creating awareness amongst people of the social causes is on what I write. So my fourth book was climate change. So climate change is the talk of the town currently, that how Earth is being affected diversely and how Earth healed itself in the lockdown. So I wrote on this social cause on Environmental Day. It got published, that was 5th June. So I felt that expressing this, creating awareness amongst people, once I do this, then after that I've written a green pledge and then do's and don'ts. And the uniqueness of this book is I've attached a name seed at the back of the book. So it gives a message that you should plant your own tree and don't leave this envelope empty. Put a seed of your own household and pass it on to another friend. This helps create awareness in your own way, which helps change the way people think.
And have people actually done it? What has the response been to
the response has been pretty positive. I have been giving this book since a lot of time by going to schools, conducting sessions.
Wow.
Until now, I have given 1,800 books. And my aim is to complete 10,000 books by the end of the year.
And hopefully that will, amazing. And hopefully that will result in 20,000 trees. We will keep our fingers tightly crossed.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Amazing. Will you tell us about what you feel writing can achieve and lead to?
I think writing is stronger than any fixed superpower because it affects people. When you read something, may it be a newspaper, book or anything relating to the reality or common life of a person, you are deeply influenced to think about it. So it affects the thinking of people. I think many of you got aware of climate change either through school, books, newspaper, anything like that. It was a change that enters our mind. If you do something, we first learn about it, and that learning comes mainly from books. And the books influence the thinking and are thus more powerful than any other superpower.
So is there any area in which you would like to influence the thinking of your readers?
I would like to. Bravery is my mainly because if you read my book, so it is basic, superhero book, and bravery is a general part of it. Bravery, trust, and friendship. That is a general part, and I would like to influence people to be brave in their thoughts. If they are right, they should not feel the fear to tell everybody about their thoughts.
Right. So openness and the ability to talk about what you feel, to be frank and honest. Amazing. And Arya, will you tell us what?
I guess writing is just one of many superpowers, and I guess all of us are superhumans in one way or the other.
Well said.
Superpower is just an ability out of the ordinary, something unique that you have. I guess that all of us have something different in us, a spark, a revolution that's going to start, because in the cave that you fear to enter lies the treasure you seek. So by my book, I want to make it loud enough so that everybody can take out and recognize their own superpower, so that they can be their own superheroes.
Wonderful. Really nicely said. Very, very sweet. Okay, so I actually thought I'd like to talk a little about the books you've written, about the characters you've created, and the powers and the characteristics and the special personalities you've created around them. So let's start this way now, and to mix things up a little. So how did you come up with Mankis? Is that how you pronounce the Manchis? Okay. So Chinese name, little Chinese boy, descendant of a brave man who dared to carry away a scroll away from a very evil emperor. And now this little boy has to take care of the scroll, and through that guard the treasure that the scroll would ultimately lead to, and tackle a clue hunt. Am I accurate and right? Yeah. So how did you decide to create this character of Mantius? How isn't it difficult sometimes to jump into another culture, into the mind of a child who, in a way, has led such a different life from yours? You know, a boy in China somewhere. How did you go about it, and how did you create this entire personality of the child?
I like to start with a mention of Joseph Campbell. He was a man who collected and retold many of the stories and said that they all follow a very similar philosophy. There's a status quo at which it starts and a status quo at which it ends. There's a plot, a crisis, a twist midway, and that keeps on repeating in most of the popular stories. And another thing that's normal in most of the stories is that the protagonist is always made in the mirror image of oneself, of the author. So I guess I made Mencius in my own image. I made him just like me, my age, and he has no special powers. He's just smart, always willing to do something, and he's sometimes nervous.
Yeah.
And when he is faced with different circumstances that force him to change his mindset, he decides that it's time for him to change, and his character develops into a full-fledged treasure hunter.
Why did you feel it was important to give your character flaws? When we create characters, protagonists, superheroes or regular protagonists, we love to give them wonderful things to be. They are honest, they are brave, they are beautiful, they are sort of resourceful. There are many, many things. But flaws, I feel, are an integral part of the package of any character. And why do you feel that is so?
Because imperfectness is the beauty in humans.
Absolutely.
And the same thing in the characters of a story. If a character is imperfect, that's what makes the character liked by each one of our readers.
The adults are talking, learn from him. It doesn't seem very imperfect person is somebody whom you can share your thoughts with, who may or may not share your flaws, correct your flaws. He is a person who helps and it gets helped by you and vice versa. So I think an imperfect person is and about my journalist. So the major thing I'll say is main flaw I thought when I reread the book was is a very impulsive nature, to jump into things, just 2 lines he's read and jump into things believing that he can do anything.
Right.
But the bravery, but in impulsiveness is always a bravery to do things, not like fearing for yourself. You are going forth to save others.
Correct.
So impulsiveness in itself is a flaw and something good.
Correct.
In a way.
Combination. No, you're right. Absolutely.
So I think the way he travels to the forest, he shows that he is both impulsive, sometimes intelligent when he realizes the situation is too difficult to be handled just by brute force.
No, absolutely.
So I think that is what he is, a balance. Not a perfect balance, but a balance which all of us are.
Absolutely. And why a Caspian? Why did you make him into a Caspian?
Like, I was just, a child, random thoughts going when you are going through. You don't want to write, but this random thought just pops into your mind. And then you hurry if you like it, you have to hurry to the keyboard before you forget that it ever existed.
Totally agree. I do it even at 3 a.m. Sometimes I run to the keyboard because that random thought can be the turning point of any book. You're right.
Yes.
Yeah. Karnav, will you tell us about Karthik?
I mean, we do get 6,000 random thoughts per day, so it's very tough to pen them down. Speaking about flaws, qualities and everything, it's very important for you to classify your characters as good or bad. So that's the reason, it's the key to building a perfect plot. I have kept kept Karthik and Mixi as the static characters in all my 7 books, which is a series talking about social causes. This book has section 1 and section 2. Section 1 talks about the problems which are faced by Mother Nature, and section 2 also gives the solutions, not leading the reader to find them themselves. So I have classified my characters as good or bad in my first 3 books to build up a plot. Like speaking of the first one, in every story I had kept a robber or a person who cuts trees. So he corrects them and gives a good moral value to the reader to understand what and where my book is leading.
Correct. So there is that clash between good and evil which causes interest and involves the reader.
True.
Wonderful. And tell us a little about Mixi, because as a robot.
The name is MIXIE, so it's a mix of everything.
Okay.
It's a walking, talking robot which acts like a friend or mentor of Mixi, which guides him through the journey, which is a wonderful journey of my book.
Super. Now I've just been told that we are almost out of time, so can we? No one question. One
Does
question.
anyone have a question? I can take only one. Who has the most urgent question? इस question से life change होना चाहिए किसी का. Okay, he hasn't interacted at all, so can we have the mic there? Do we have a mic?
I would like to ask the question to Karnav. As you told that Mixi is a robot, are you anywhere inspired from Isaac Asimov?
Yes, I was about to speak the quote of Isaac Asimov, speaking about the superpowers on our fingertips, as correctly the minister who had come a few minutes ago said that we all have powers, that words are flowing through our fingers. So I'm truly inspired by Isaac Asimov and his quotes.
Lovely. That is all the time we have. Can we have a huge round of applause for this panel? Thank you, Shabnam, and thank you to all the authors with you, Arya, Dhruv, Karnav. Can we have you towards the front of the stage for a photo, please?